Today on Sports Central, we're going to be going over our next schedule preview this 2020 offseason, and it will be over the Kansas Jayhawks. This is a team that went 3-9 in the 2019 season, and Kansas hasn't made a bowl game in quite a while, but will they in 2020 is what we're going over here today. We're going to be going over a few players that this team will be losing, who they're going to be returning, and also going over their schedule for the first time this offseason. Starting off with the games that Kansas has had since November. We start off on November 2nd where they played Kansas State. That was a tough loss there, 10-38. Then a couple weeks later, they played Oklahoma State on the road. Another tough loss, 13-31. They did a closer loss to Iowa State. I mean, being able to keep up with a team that really was not all that bad last season was not that bad of a loss for Kansas. I mean, it was 31-41. So they were able to put up 31 points there, so that was good. But the next week, not the same story. They ended up losing to Baylor big time, 60-61. That game was not even close. We had the trend for Kansas last season. They were 3-5 between September and October, but they were 0-4 in November. So yeah, down the stretch, this Kansas team really struggled. But yeah, for them to get 3 wins, that's better than how they've been in a while. So yeah, for Kansas, of course, I mean, with having Les Miles now as their head coach, I mean, certainly this Kansas team has had a lot more potential over the last couple of seasons. And yeah, I certainly think Kansas has a ton of room for improvement going into next season, as you can see from the returning production. The biggest hit for this team is certainly losing their starting quarterback, Carter Stanley. That's going to be a really tough loss. He actually was not all that bad of a quarterback at all. He had over 2,600 yards of offense with 24 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. And considering for a team that's 3-9, yeah, Carter Stanley was actually a really good quarterback for this team. So yeah, if they can figure out the quarterback situation, if they can get another good quarterback under center, I think that Kansas could easily have that good chance to make a bowl game next season. They return their top running back, Puka Williams. That's going to be a huge return too. He had over 1,200 yards last season with 5 touchdowns. But however, they did lose their second running back in Khalil Herbert. That's going to be another tough loss there. Of course, he had right around 400 yards of offense with 2 touchdowns last season. They returned their top wide receiver, Andrew Parchment, which he had right over 830 yards with 7 touchdowns. And they also returned their second wide receiver in Stephon Robinson, which he had over 700 yards of offense last season too. So yeah, returning your top 2 receivers is going to be huge, especially for the quarterback. That's going to be the quarterback next season. Of course, it really helps to have a couple of experienced weapons in the receiving core, especially if you're a new quarterback to a program. But yeah, they also lose their third wide receiver in Daylon Charlotte, which he had just over 400 yards with 2 touchdowns. So yeah, that'll be another tough loss, but of course it's still good that they get to return their top 2 receivers. They also return their 4th wide receiver, who will probably be their 3rd next season, in Kwame Lassiter, which he had over 350 yards with a touchdown last season. They also lose 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen, and 2 linebackers, as well as 3 in the secondary. So this defense has taken some major hits. That's going to be really tough to deal with. They have 7 losses, 7 starting position losses for the defense going into 2020. So yeah, this defense is definitely going to be on a bit of a decline heading into 2020. Certainly for a team that's 3-9 to have as many losses as Kansas is having, it's really tough to say whether or not they're going to make a bowl game in 2020. I mean, sometimes you'll see a huge surprise team come out of nowhere. But the thing is, though, if you see a big surprise team, typically it's because the previous year or the previous season, they did not have very many senior losses. And for Kansas, yeah, they're losing 7 on the defense. I mean, this offense isn't losing a whole lot. Of course, once again, you're losing your starting quarterback, your second running back, 3rd wide receiver. But yeah, honestly, for this defense for Kansas, it's going to be really tough for them to be able to keep up, especially with them losing 7 starters once again. Yeah, so making a bowl game in 2020, I mean, there's a chance, but it is extremely slim. I mean, for Kansas to go 3-9 this season with as many seniors as they had, yeah, it does concern me a little bit, I will say that. Moving on to your 2020 schedule for Kansas, we start off on September 5th when they play New Hampshire. Then you got Baylor the following week on the road. You got Boston College, and then Coastal Carolina to finish off September. To kick off October, you got Iowa State and Kansas State. That Kansas State game will be a road game. Then you got Oklahoma State at home, West Virginia on the road to finish off October. Then you get a bye week before you head to Texas, or you play them at home. Then you're on the road for Texas Tech and Oklahoma, 2 probably difficult games. Then you finish off the season against TCU at home. And yeah, for Kansas, once again, I mean, with them losing as many seniors as they had, I'm not really expecting a whole lot out of this team heading into 2020. I mean, once again, there is a chance that they make a bowl game, but I think it's going to be very slim. So I'm going to give you a record estimation to be 3-9 to 5-7. I think that they won't get any worse. I think they'll get at least 3 wins. I mean, there are 3 very winnable games on the schedule for Kansas. I mean, you got New Hampshire, of course. That will be your one guaranteed win. You could also win against Boston College. I mean, Boston College really is definitely a very beatable team, considering how many losses that they're having as well. They got Coastal Carolina on September 26th. That will be a road game, and of course for Kansas, they rarely win road games, so that could be a bit of a challenge, but I think they've got a chance to get a good win there against Coastal Carolina. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, you could get a conference win. I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, looking at your home games, you got Oklahoma State, Texas, TCU. Of course, I mean, Oklahoma State and Texas I do expect to be pretty good next season. But yeah, as far as road games go, I mean, you could be West Virginia, you could be Texas Tech, who knows. That'll be your record estimation once again for Kansas, 3-9 to 5-7. I'm really not expecting a bowl game next season. I think for Les Miles, though, I mean, I trust him a ton as a coach. I think he's a great coach. I mean, we saw what all he did at LSU when he was there. So, yeah, certainly we've seen what he can do, and I'm sure that he'll be able to pull off some pretty good seasons like Kansas within the next few years. But I just don't feel next year's going to be the year for that. I mean, considering Kansas is in a very big recruiting team, and also considering once again how many losses that they're having, it's really tough to say that Kansas is going to have a bowl season next year. But I think in the future, I think in the near future, we could see a bowl season out of Kansas. I mean, I'm not saying how far it will be, but I mean, within maybe 2 or 3 years, who knows? I mean, looking at how many seniors they lost this year, I mean, that means they probably won't lose a whole lot after next season, and they also have a quarterback who will be younger. So, yeah, certainly for Kansas, once again, I think the future is bright for them, especially with Les Miles. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to say that for now going into 2020. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on Kansas in the comments below. Let me know whether you think they'll be worse or better. Yeah, this is our last Big 12 schedule preview, so I hope you guys enjoyed these. We'll be on to the ACC next. Thank you all for watching once again. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I will see you all later.